Now, I could have made a little song out of this, but I think I'll just spare you guys that and jump straight into, if LEAD was an acronym, how would I define it? So my name is Michael, also known as KES, and keeping everything simple, let's jump right in. So first of LEAD, there's L. And I don't mean L as in you're gonna be taking L's as a leader, though I do admit you probably will at some point or another. And I also apologize in advance, I can't look at the camera while I write. I'm not that talented. But when it comes to the first letter in the acronym is L, the one that or the word that I will put that with is learning. So why learning? Well, a couple reasons. Think of it this way. If you're a world-class, like #1 athlete, let's use Usain Bolt as an example. The fastest man in the world, #1. If you're at that #1 position, what would you do? Now, I don't think he would decide to sit on a beach and drink Mai Tais for the rest of the time and just assume that I have this #1 title, no one else is gonna come for it, I've secured it. No, not really, because you have second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place, everyone else who wants that title. They're working, they're training, they're improving their craft and their skills so that way they can take that title. So if you're in that #1 position, you have to continue to work too. You have to put in the time and the effort and continue to get better, even if you are the #1 in the world. And the same applies to leadership. So just because you have the title, that doesn't mean you stop learning. Instead, it means you learn new things. You learn how to better be a leader, how to better communicate, learn about the future of the company, what prospects and goals do they have, learn about your team, learn about the individuals in there, their hopes, their dreams, their future, their aspirations. You have to think about it and you have to keep learning. Because as I've said in the past, the best leaders are eternal students because they know the value of knowledge. And that leads us into the next letter, which is E. So what I'd put to that one is engage, and it's actually two, empower. Wow, my handwriting's really bad. But we have engage and empower. So if you have talked to a teenager who happens to be in the height of their teenager angst, you probably have had conversations where it's just one-word responses. How was school today? It was fine. Did you eat? Yeah, I ate. Learn anything new? No. If you've had conversations like this, you know just how frustrating they can be because it's disingenuous, because there's no engagement in there, and because there's no inherent value in that conversation and in that interaction. Eventually, both parties just want to give up. And you can't have that as a leader. You can't be disengaged and expect your team to engage instead. You have to set that precedent. And from there, if you have them engage, you empower them. You empower them and inspire them to want to take action and to actively put in the work because they feel motivated and like they're contributing to something larger because you've engaged them to the goal, to the company, to the team. And that's where it's so important that you, again, engage and empower them. And beyond just empowering them, this also creates a healthy work environment for them because one of the biggest things that really drives any worker is that they feel empowered, that there's some sense of autonomy as well as some sense of I'm contributing to a larger goal. And that creates a healthy workplace for them. And speaking of healthy workplaces, that moves us on to the letter A, which, oh, I hope I spelled this right. Adaptability. So, why adaptability? If you're someone who crumbles at an inconvenience or when a problem arises, that's not something that you want to show your team. Murphy's Law literally says what can go wrong will go wrong. And like I said earlier, as a leader, you will probably be taking some L's. This is where that really comes into play. Because if you can't adapt, if you can't redirect and guide your team through an issue or through an unforeseen problem, you're gonna have a hard time gaining and maintaining their trust. Because every time that you fail to adapt or every time that you crumble under that pressure, your team will lose a little bit of trust in you. And this, I obviously won't say it's not gonna be every single time. There's gonna be circumstances that can actually be very, very stressful. But if you can adapt effectively and consistently, you're gonna build a stronger image for your team, as well as continue to hold on to and command their respect and their trust, because they know that if something goes wrong, their lead will figure it out. Their lead will provide answers and provide guidance, because if you end up going down, then you're probably gonna take your whole team with you. So you have to be adaptable. And that leads us then into our final letter, which is D. And that I put as development. Now, development as a leader can mean a couple things, but I like to think of it as personal development. So the first person that you will ever lead is yourself. If you cannot understand your emotions, if you cannot understand your thoughts, how you're inspired and how you're motivated and the goals that you want, you're gonna have a hard time, I believe, being an effective leader. Obviously, you can be a manager type and go through the motions and just create results, but leading is about inspiring and influencing your team and those around you. And personal development is all about that self-discovery, that self-understanding, and growing as an individual. And that's why it's so important in leadership that you continue on the path of self-development, because it is an infinite journey. There's always going to be some other chapter to get to, but you have to understand that because it's a process, you're gonna have wins along the way. So don't discredit the problems or the situation that you've come out of and you've come out of stronger and better for. Instead, see them as these cornerstones, these achievements on this path of development. And that is gonna be something that will bleed into your team, because they will understand and see my leader, my boss is actively going out of their way to be the best version of themselves. And they will want to in turn bring the best version of themselves to the table as well. And that's why it's so important that you always continue to develop as an individual. So that way, as you go about your career as a leader, you're able to point to why you want to do something, what drives you, and how you got there. But that makes the acronym LEAD. So learning, engage and empower, adaptability, and development. So as a leader, you must always be learning. You must always be able to engage with your team and empower them. You have to be adaptable in any circumstance to the best of your ability, because sometimes there will be things that you actively can't handle and you have to go up the chain of command for. And you have to work on your development. You can't just get the title and assume you're good, because a leader is a person. It's not a title. Remember that. And so, keeping everything simple, like this video if you found this acronym helpful. Check out my video on the 5 C's framework I use for leadership, and have an awesome day. I will see you guys in another video.